Good morning. Thank you for joining us for this service and Dharma talk, which are being recorded for our April Shotsuki Hoyo, and this will be broadcast or premiered on April 4th of 2021 under Pasadena Buddhist Temple on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. We will begin by the chanting of the Sanbutsuge. Please join me for that chanting or listen reverently as we chant the Buddha's words. We rely upon the source of limitless wisdom and endless life. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Nabutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Nabutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Busetsu Daimuryo Jukyo Sanbutsuge Kogengigi Ijin Mugoku Nyode Enmyo Muyo Tosha Nichigatmani Shuko Enyo Taishnonpe Yunyaku Jumoku Nyorai Yogen Chosei Murin Shogaku Daion Koru Jippo Taimon Shojin Dammai Chie Itoku Muryo Shusho Keiu Jintai Zennen Shobuten Hokai Gujin Jinno Kugo Gaitai Mumyo Yokunu Peison Yomu Ninno Shi Jintoku Muryo Kukun Kodai Chie Jinmyo Komyo Iso Shindo Daisen Ganga Sabuten Taisho Ho Kado Shoji Mihu Geidaten Fute Joi Kainin Shojin Nyode Sammai Chie Ijo Gosei Tokubuten Fugyo Shigan Issai Ku Issa Dayon Keshi Ubuten Shakusen Nokuman Muryo Daisho Shunyong Odya Kuyo Issai Shito Shobuten Funyo Gudo Kensho Fugyaku Hinyong Odya Shobuten Sekai Mufu Kage Mushu Setendo Komyo Shisho Henshi Shokoku Nyode Shojin Ijin Nanryo Yoga Sabuten Kokudo Daichi Goshu Kimyo Dojo Chozet Kokunyo Nayon Nimu Toso Gato Aimin Dodaten Issai Jipo Raisho Shinneten Shoujo Ito Gakoku Keraku Annon Kobuten Shinmyo Zega Shinsho Hotsugan Nohi Rikisho Shoyoku Jipo Seison Chie Muge Joryo Shison Shiga Shingyo Keiryo Shinshi Shoku Dokuchu Gagyo Shojin Ninju Huke Namandabu 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 Gani Shikudoku Byodo Sei Isai Don Modai Shin Onjo An La Koku Namanabu, 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 namana. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. We rely upon the source of limitless wisdom and endless life. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. As I mentioned, this is our April Shotsuki Hoyo service, the service in which we read the names of and recall those who we know have passed in the month of April, those close to us, our family members, our friends of the temple. So reading now from the April Shotsuki list, if you had someone pass in the month of April and they're not on our Shotsuki Hoyo list yet, we'll be happy to add their name to our list. Just contact me on that. For the standing list now, April Shotsuki Hoyo. Doi Tomoyo. Fujikawa Masao. Fujimoto Kenji. Fukumoto Suma. Goto Tsune. Goto Yoshio. Hanashiro Seiichi. Harabe Kazuaki. Hayama Yonekichi. Hida Yuko. Hino Naokichi. Horowitz Nishimoto Michi. Ikeda Dr. Kazuo. Inoue Kurakichi. Ishihara Kohei. Ishita Shizuko. Iwata Masu. Kawahara Hinasaku. Kawahara Sumako. Kawamoto Masami. Kikawa Alice. Kimura Mamoru. Kiriyama Aki. Kobayashi Sumie. Konishi Tomi. Kubo Tamino. Matsumura Buichi. Mitsuoka Shigeru. Muraki Kayo. Muraki Toraichi. Nagata Nami. Nagatani Ito. Nakagawa Mitchell Mitsuo. Nakanishi Yukiko. Nakatani Se. Noda Satoru. Noda Tadayuki. Okazaki Fuku. Okazaki Shohachi. Oki Saichi. Okida Hizume. Okuno Mitsuko. Omori Fumio. Omura Tsuru. Oshita Rikie. Oshita Rikie. Otake Shizue. Otani Hamako. Saeda Asaichi. Sakai Gonzo. Sakiyabu Shigeichi. Sakamoto Some. Sakamoto Tsune. Sato Tadao. Sera Rikue. Sunara Kiyomi. Takagi Masaichi. Takeda Katsuichi. Tamura Shie. Tanaka Tazuno. Tanaka Yoshitaro. Tanimoto Shigeyoshi. Tarumoto Naoichi Tom. Tsukida Shiki. Tsukimoto Tarashi. Tsukimoto Tarashi. Utsumi Takeo Babe. Ue Tanaka Toshiko. Wakasa Hisashi. Wakasa Mitsuye. Watanabe Tome. Yamada Nitaro, Yamaguchi Yasuyoshi, Yamamoto Tamigoro, Yamane Ishii, Yamane Tsune, Yamasaki Jun, Yamasaki Masuichi, Yamasaki Teruo, Yamasaki Ryuso, Yamasaki Satoko, Yamashita Naota, Yamashita Yoshino, Yano Kizo, Yoneda Hatsue Su. We rely upon the source of limitless wisdom, light, and endless life. Namo Buddhaya. Well, thank you for listening reverently as we read the names of those who we know have passed in the month of April. Our service is dedicated to those people whose names that I just read, who passed away in one year or another in the month of April. Our service is also less formally, but quite truly dedicated to all who are victims of prejudice. We dedicate this service to the well-being of all who are the victims of prejudice. We all have prejudices in one sense, unexamined preferences. They don't all judge others as lower or higher. They don't all disempower others. I like the color blue. I'm not sure why. A lot of people do. I like the color blue better than I like the color red. We may prefer one color to another when we're buying an automobile. I've never bought a red car. I've owned several blue cars. It's okay to prefer one color to another when you're buying an automobile, not when you're hiring a clerk. Prejudice is an ugly thing when it leads to valuing one class of people above another class of people. Prejudice is an ugly thing when it leads to valuing one kind of person above other kinds of persons. We must slowly, painfully, painstakingly root out the causes of racism and bigotry. We must root out the causes of prejudice and bigotry. We must change our society, not just our individual selves. These days, 2020, 2021, during this pandemic, many of us find ourselves attending many internet meetings and services and study sessions, Zoom meetings, Zoom seminars. A couple months back, I attended one of these Zoom seminars that included lay people and scholars and priests from Higashi Honganji and pastors from Nishi Honganji. And I don't remember what the topic for the meeting was. There's so many of these meetings. But the breakout session that I was in, was focused on the topic of prejudice and what to do about prejudice, specifically prejudice based on race, gender, and sexual orientation. And in this breakout session, I raised this question: what can we do to root out the systemic racism and the systemic sexism in our institutions? A Nishi Honganji-based scholar, a Higashi pastor, and a scholar of general Buddhism were in this group, and all three of them said, "I will reflect on my own prejudices." Boy, that'll help a lot, won't it? That is the wrong answer. I will reflect on my own prejudices. That is the wrong answer. That is an escape into subjectivity, an escape into inwardness. We must actually do something, not just retreat into our own inwardness and reflect on ourselves. Buddhism is not a self-actualization program for bored rich people. The Buddha Dharma is not some self-help program for disaffected members of the middle class. The Buddha Dharma is a major spiritual reset. The Buddha Dharma is a major reevaluation of our lives and their meaning, a reset of our practices and priorities. Buddhism is about resetting our priorities. It is about a re-engagement with others, a more positive, respectful engagement with others. This is what Buddhism is about. Now, I often tell you that you are on a vehicle, like a train, whose inevitable destination is enlightenment. You are on a vehicle whose inevitable destination is enlightenment. I tell you this from time to time, and this is true. This is true. However, it's also true that you and I are on a ship whose current course is towards an iceberg, which will bring death and suffering to all of us. Both of these images bring up genuine aspects of our situation. In Jōdo Buddhism, in the Jōdo stream of Pure Land Mahayana, this is what's called the two deep aspects of faith. It was first explicitly outlined by the monk Shantao, or Zendo, in 7th century China. And the two aspects of deep religious faith are, firstly, this one aspect of the realization of trust in the Buddha's vow. It is a realization that given the karmic conditions I'm living in right now, given all my past actions, given the natural factors in my life right now, they all point towards horrible suffering. However, the other truth about deep spiritual trust, the other truth that deep spiritual trusting unveils for us is that enlightened hearts and minds, the enlightened hearts and minds of all awoken persons, of all the caring Buddhas throughout the universe, are lifting us up and carrying us along to the fulfillment that we really need. This too is true. Or as I'm putting it, the way I'm putting it this morning, you and I are on the Titanic, just about to hit the iceberg. What shall we do? Shall we rearrange the deck chairs? On the other hand, what deep spiritual trust also clarifies for us is that it's as if we are in the luxury compartment of a train which is just about to pull into the station where all our dreams come true. This too is true. How do we get more people onto this train? How do we protect more people from hate and abuse? Reflecting on our own imperfections and prejudices, like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, it's not going to do any real good. Here at the Pasadena Buddhist Temple, a few months back, we put up a Black Lives Matter poster and a LGBTQ support flag. We have these two statements posted at both the entrances to our property, to our grounds. This was a small gesture, but it was doing something. It wasn't just reflecting on ourselves for our own betterment. We did something. We put up that Black Lives Matter flag. We put up that LGBTQ support flag. We have posters and banners in support of those who are routinely objects of prejudice. We have banners and flags supporting those who are routinely the objects of hurtful, prejudicial behavior. And now here in April of 2021, there is an upsurge in the United States of America in discriminatory acts against Asian Americans. So one of our neighbors left a little Stop Asian Hate sign. We stand with you, with a plant they put in front of our temple. That was a lovely gesture on their part. These are small gestures, you might say, but they are also real actions and not just subjective reflections. Allow me to reflect on several of the recent attacks on Asian Americans. In Washington, D.C., was it 3 days ago, that Muhammad Anwar, an Uber Eats driver, was killed during a carjacking. Was he seen as a likely victim because he was South Asian? Who knows? A fund has been established for his family. Help if you can. Muhammad Anwar, senselessly killed in a carjacking. The next day after Muhammad Anwar was killed senselessly, a 65-year-old Asian American woman was kicked to the ground in New York City. She is only identified as an Asian American woman to protect her. Journalists don't want her to be the object of reprisal attacks, further attacks. I believe one journalist mentioned she was Filipina. She was, in any case, Asian American, and she was kicked to the ground by a man just for being Asian American, and she was told that she doesn't belong here because she is Asian American. There's a lot of blowback from this one. We're hearing that a security guard in a hotel this happened in front of was fired for not intervening. He was a security guard. This was happening in front of the place he's supposed to be protecting. The police reported that there were no 911 calls. No one in that hotel or on the sidewalk or driving by called 911 and said, I just saw a woman attacked here in front of this such and such hotel. This is really a sad business. This should never have happened. There is a general problem here. Racism, bigotry. But it impacts real specific people, like Muhammad Anwar, like Elijah McClain, like Hyun Grant. We can't keep track of all the discriminatory attacks. Here in the United States of America, there are so many discriminatory attacks every day, we can't keep track of them all. We can't remember the names of all the victims of bigotry. But they were and are specific people. And that's why, for me, I can't remember every African American who's been killed while being detained by police officers. So I remember Elijah McClain, who died in Colorado last year. He is the face of Black Lives Matter for me. Elijah McClain was dancing down the street, just dancing down the street, listening to some headphones, enjoying the music. Some cops thought he looked odd, so they stopped him for questioning. And then they called in the emergency med techs. And the emergency medical tech injected him with some sedative that killed him, Elijah McClain. He didn't deserve to die just because he felt like dancing that afternoon. Wouldn't have happened to me. I am opposed to senseless acts of oppression against African Americans. I am opposed to the senseless prejudice being directed against Asian Americans. So, I will always remember Hyun Grant, who was murdered last week because of her ethnicity, being Korean American, or was it because of her profession, being a masseuse? Hyun Grant, I will not forget Elijah McClain. I will remember Elijah McClain. I will remember Hyun Grant, and there is a fund being taken for Hyun Grant's sons who have survived her murder. I will find that fund and I will make a contribution. This temple represents genuine Buddhist religiosity. We're here to work to change things for the better, to make ourselves and our world better. We do not just reflect on our own imperfections. This is not McMindfulness. This is real Buddhism. This is Jodo Shinshu. This is the Pure Land stream of Mahayana Buddhism. We speak out against bigotry and prejudice. We act to help others when we can. The threats are real. You can almost see that iceberg. The threats are real, but the love and caring are real too. I can almost feel that vehicle moving underneath me, carrying me to all dreams come true, carrying me to goodness, sharing, and fulfillment. You and I are on a train whose inevitable destination is goodness, oneness, fulfillment, caring, sharing. We will one day pull into that station. For right now, there's a lot of work to do. We must speak out against prejudice. We must speak out against bigotry. We must actively help those who are victims of bigotry and prejudice. Do what you can. Do what you can to help. And at all times, that which we direct towards others, whatever else it is respect. Whatever we do, we must respect our fellow beings. Thank you for listening to my rambling remarks here on April Shotsuki Hoyo Service Day, on this day when we've seen so much prejudice and bigotry in our country, a resurgence of racism and bigotry. We will speak against it, we will act against it, we will not be part of it. We will be part of the solution, and we will cease being any part of the problem. This is who we are as Jodo Shinshu Buddhist North Americans. In closing, those who wish to, please join me in Gasho in a posture of respect and peace, and in saying the Buddha's name a few times. We rely upon the source of limitless wisdom light and endless life. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you very much.